Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Graduating class, students, distinguished faculty, staff, parents, special guests, and Colburn School board members, it's a tremendous pleasure to welcome you to the commencement exercises of the Colburn Conservatory of Music class of 2016. A special welcome to our esteemed trustee, Alice Colomb, joining us on the platform today, who represents her fellow board members in their incredible and important role in stewarding the Colburn School, and today, their role in conferring of degrees. And a very heartfelt welcome to our commencement speaker, cellist and renowned orchestra executive, Bruce Coppock. Graduating students, over your time at Colburn, it has been our great privilege to support you as you've honed your skills, developed as gifted young artists, and pursued your dreams. We've had the great opportunity to celebrate your achievements and witness your growth, not only as performers, but as communicators, teachers, collaborators, entrepreneurs, and creative thinkers. And so today you'll join a small elite group of fewer than 200 Colburn Conservatory alumni who are shaping the future of classical music around the world. In a community as small as ours here at the Colburn School, each of you has made a lasting contribution to the history and legacy of our institution, and you will always remain part of our Colburn family. For those of you not returning to another degree program in the fall, we remain deeply committed to your success. We are all of us on this stage, and everyone at the institution are here to listen, to support, and counsel as needed. So keep in touch, share your news, visit often. This is your Colburn family. So congratulations, graduates.
Good morning. I'm Adrian Daly, the Provost and the Interim Dean of the Colburn School. I'd like to welcome the families, friends, members of the board, faculty, staff, and students to the graduation ceremony of the class of 2016. The Colburn School is proud of our newest alumni and their accomplishments to date. We look forward to their future successes and accomplishments in their lives beyond Colburn, and we celebrate with them today as they enter the next phase of their lives. There are many around us each and every day that help make our institution possible. Our exceptional faculty are dedicated to the Colburn School and take ownership of the responsibility for the quality of your education here at the Colburn School. They will remain resources to our graduates throughout your professional and personal lives ahead. I would like to ask our faculty to stand and be recognized for their contributions to the school and to the lives of our students and our alumni. There are others here today who are equally dedicated to the school. Our trustees oversee this institution and shepherd the resources here to ensure the quality of this institution and the sustainability of this institution over time. I would ask that all of the trustees present also stand to be recognized. Additionally, I must also recognize the staff of the Colburn School, who, like the faculty, also work tirelessly in support of all of our efforts. Would the staff please stand for a moment so that they can be recognized? And finally, I'd like to also recognize the families of the graduates who have also stood behind you every step of the way. So thank you for all of your efforts over the years to get your students to get to Colburn and for the paths ahead. So to the families also, thank you. Today's student speakers were selected by the recommendation of the faculty and represent both the undergraduate and graduate classes. Ben Manis, cellist, is well known at the Colburn School as a dedicated cellist, musician, and emerging conductor, an individual whom I've come to know who fully understands what the Colburn School represents and who cares deeply about this institution. Like so many of you here before me today, Ben has a deep commitment to his music making, to excellence, and to the integrity of everything that he does. Our graduate speaker is Jena Wight. In addition to being an exceptional trumpeter and student in her master's program, there are few students who have utilized the community engagement program at Colburn more than Jena. As a teaching fellow, she has participated in the Jumpstart Young Musicians program as a teacher and mentor, has given numerous community-based performances, served as Colburn's first conservatory intern with Street Symphony, and performed for over 2,000 children as part of the Musical Encounter Initiative and interactive performances. Jena's drive to understand the role musicians play in their community is an example to us all. I give you Ben Manis and then Jena Wight.
Well, thank you, Dr. Daly, and good morning, everybody. Great to see you all here. People change a lot between ages 18 and 22. I know I have. One of the biggest differences for me has actually been a change not in who I am, but in how well, at least I think, I know myself. I'm constantly feeling like I'm pulling layers of myself off, like some kind of weird onion, like I'm getting closer and closer to something, whatever that might be. But so one of the things that I've come to learn about myself is that I tend to get very anxious in times of transition. Most of you don't know this, but I've been struggling with anxiety disorder since I was in 4th grade. The anxiety comes and goes, but there are certain constants, like transitions. You know, like the end of the year, for example, or the beginning of the year. Could be even as simple as going home for break. I'm not good at going to new places. I'm not good at doing new things. So as this week was getting closer and closer, I decided to prepare myself. I began thinking, I know myself. I know the feeling that's coming. I've dealt with it before. I remind myself of Don Green's amazing mantra, I'll handle it. I'll handle it. Anyways, last Saturday, I went out for dinner with Tanner and Michael, my roommates. We went to Elena's Greek and Armenian food in Glendale. It's pretty good. I'd been doing really well anxiety-wise up until then, but suddenly, as we were sitting there, I was just overwhelmed by this wave of panic. We all know how those times of anxious fear can feel, like there's a pit in your stomach that's opening up and swallowing you whole. It's really just about the most terrifying thing in the world, not being able to control your own mind. So I started the mental process that I always start when I get anxious. I remind myself that anxiety doesn't define me, that it'll make me stronger, that I knew this was coming, that I'll handle it. But as I was sitting there eating, I just felt powerless. There are moments when we're just swallowed up and overwhelmed, and it's scariest of all when it's your own hardware doing the overwhelming. You know, it's easy to see why people are uncomfortable at transition moments in life. It's scary. It's scary for a lot of different reasons. It's scary in a lot of different ways. But now, as I'm looking back on that dinner, there's something comforting about that fear. Despite all the change that's going to happen in our lives in the next couple months, on some level, it's really only a battle with ourselves that we're all fighting. It should make us feel better to remember that this fight is only within us and that we have the rest of our lives to better ourselves from the inside out. It's a struggle worth embracing, and there's no rush. So in a new apartment, in a new city, surrounded by a completely different lifestyle, we have all our experiences, all our memories, all our baggage to draw on, good or bad. These things make up our inner world, and what we choose to take from them has profound effects on who we are. Somewhere in there is peace and acceptance and love. And somewhere in there is deception and loneliness and fear. In the middle of all this thinking about transitions in the future, writing this speech made me reach back into the last 4 years. It was a really difficult process for me, thinking of something to say today. I know graduation speeches are supposed to be short and light. Of course, this one is neither, but I wanted to write something that lived up to what this school has given us and what it's meant to us as we've gone through our years here. You know, it's a big responsibility being a school. When I came here, I was a dumb 18-year-old who didn't know anything. Now, I'm a dumb 21-year-old who doesn't know anything. And yet, I think I've grown so much. How is that possible? Well, they say it takes a village. One of my favorite things about Colburn is the potential for meaningful relationships between any student and really any teacher. As I look at all the faculty sitting here today, nearly every one of you has played a role in my time here, in all of our time here. Mr. Leonard somehow put up with me for 4 years. I don't know how. It's really amazing. And by the way, completely transformed my cello playing while he did it. Dr. Miller, Mr. Spaeth, add unbelievable perspective to how we all understand music. And of course, nobody could call themselves a Colburn graduate without knowing the most important lesson of all. Life is truly not a bagel. On a deeper level, though, it's this community that shapes who we are. And it's more up to us to create our own community than we usually think it is. That's really important. It can be just one person, it can be 100 people, just Tanner and I sitting on the couch watching Berlin Phil on my computer, or the whole Colburn Orchestra playing Daphnis at Disney Hall. It's our community which defines us as people and as a school. And leaving this community behind is as sad and as beautiful as anything we've ever done. Transitions are hard. They're intimidating. They're scary, a magic date in your head after which everything changes. And this graduating class may be small, but we've been through a lot together. And as I think about what's coming next, with all its excitement and fear and elation and disappointment, I know one thing for sure. Whatever happens, we'll handle it. Thank you.
A few years ago, my friend Jordan had a really bad performance. He was playing the big trumpet solo in the wind band piece, When Jesus Wept. The solo went really badly. People actually started calling the piece When Jordan Wept. After the concert, he was backstage hanging his head, and his teacher walked up and grabbed his shoulder and said, "This performance does not define you as a trumpet player. No single performance defines you as a musician." I would take this one step further and say, you are not defined by your instrument at all. You are of great and immeasurable worth, just as you are. At the end of the day, I blow air through metal tubing. It is who I am as a human being that defines what I do. It is who you are that brings your music to life. Never doubt that you deserve to be heard. More than what or how we play, life is about who we are as people. We have spent hours honing our craft. Therefore, we are perseverant. We have endured endless criticism, so we are tough. We have explored the musical landscapes of Mahler, Schumann, Mozart, and Bach, so we are sensitive. We have worked with Mr. Gilad, so we are famous. Your time here at Colburn was about more than mastering your instrument. It was about becoming the person you are right now, full of all that you have to offer to the world. Never doubt what you have to share beyond whatever instrument it is you hold. I hope for all of us that we never get a job in music. Because making music is not a job. Making music is more. We must choose and work to not become the person in the orchestra or the soloist or the teacher who plays concerts because it is their job. We owe so much more to the music than to play it only for a paycheck. We are different because what we do is art. What we do speaks to the mind and to the soul. Every job is important in its own way. Ours is important in that it brings light in the darkness. It heals. It explains. It challenges. It connects. We are not simply well-trained products of an institution. We are agents of change and reconciliation. We must not let the struggles and the monotony of life take the knowledge of this away. We chose this career path because we thought we had something to offer to music. We don't do this for the paycheck. And while it may be the way that you put food on the table, it is also the way you feed yourself emotionally, and the way you feed society and its people hungry for the beauty that you create. So, let's be a force for good. May we choose to speak positively of our conductor, our contractor, our section mates, the orchestra member that everyone wants to retire, the student at your next school who isn't quite up to speed yet. As Jane Goodall said, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. Doctors do not turn away patients. Likewise, we cannot turn away listeners. And more than that, we may need to seek out those who need to hear. The people in need may find their way into your concert halls, but they may not. Robert Schumann said, "To send light into the darkness of humanity's heart, such is the duty of the artist." Indeed, it is our duty to acknowledge the worth of every person. And the way we can do that is through the sharing of our craft. If people are in need, we as human beings must respond to that need. We as musicians can use this inspiring, magical, meaningful thing that we get to do to answer that need. Engaging with a community through music is something that I believe to be at the heart of a musician's purpose. Perhaps it is even a responsibility. Concert halls are a fairly recent invention. It used to be that music was accessible much more readily to the whole community. Bach was writing for his church congregation. Vivaldi was writing for orphans. Beethoven quartets were performed in bars. Music was and is meant to be shared with all, not just with the people who can get themselves to the hallowed halls of our symphony centers. The brass quintet that I played with here at Colburn got the opportunity recently to play in the Linwood County Women's Jail. We walked through the locked double doors and into a drill. All of the guards were carrying guns and they had helmets on. We were escorted to the module where we would be performing, and the guards screamed at the women to get ready, get out of their cells, get down here. Then we started our show. And it was like we were transported away from that cold room with its bars and guards and dehumanization. And as we played our final piece, a New Orleans-style second-line song, the women went crazy. They were clapping and dancing and hollering. There were huge smiles on all of their faces. These women who can't take a step out of line without being reprimanded were compelled to dance. Perhaps for a few moments, these prisoners felt free. But the most amazing part was that we felt free too. We, who may sometimes feel imprisoned by our training and the incredibly high expectations placed on us. It is these expectations that allow us to play at the level we do. But I can't tell you what it felt like to see people dancing to our music. It was an exchange. We were changed just as much as the audience was. People need to hear you. Music is meant to be shared with all, and there is no one better in my mind than all of you to share it with them. You have so much to say, you as musicians and you as people. Someone once said, good players inspire themselves, great players inspire others. I have been inspired by all of you, and I can't wait to see how we, the Colburn class of 2016, will inspire the world. Thank you.
It's my great pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker this morning, Bruce Coppock. Bruce is recently retired following 2 significant tenures as president and managing director of the Saint Paul Chamber Orchestra, a position in which he fulfilled both the artistic and executive roles. He first led the SBCO from 1999 until 2008, when he was forced to step down due to cancer, of which he is now a 10-year survivor. During a 5-year hiatus focused on medical issues, clearly, he served as consultant to several major symphony orchestras and as managing director of the Cleveland Orchestra's Miami residency. He resumed his tenure in St. Paul in 2013 and retired this past December. His time at the Saint Paul Chamber Orchestra was marked by profound changes in the orchestra's profile, the creation of a collaborative artistic leadership structure, and significant audience and fundraising growth. His second 2.5-year term at the SBCO served as the capstone to a 15-year effort to place the SBCO musicians at the center of its artistic governance and to alter dramatically the artistic profile of the SBCO. Bruce's tenure culminated in the creation of an intimate, purpose-built 1,100-seat concert hall designed specifically to the Saint Paul Chamber Orchestra's acoustical specifications. And I can say I had an opportunity to hear the SBCO rehearse in the hall in this past November. It's an extraordinary performance hall, fantastic acoustics. It's amazing, one of the great halls in the world. The opening of the hall in 2015 and the infusion of many new players in the orchestra, most of whom are primarily chamber musicians, combined with many structural artistic changes, has transformed the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra into one of the most dynamic musical organizations in the country. Prior to his tenure at St. Paul, Bruce served as the founding director of the League of American Orchestra's Orchestra Leadership Academy, deputy director of Carnegie Hall, and executive director of the St. Louis Symphony, where a hallmark of his tenure was the development of significant and comprehensive community engagement programs. He's also been an active board member, the Harlem Boys Choir, the Interlochen Center for the Arts, and the Curtis Institute of Music, where he's currently on the Board of Overseers. Earlier in his career, prior to a car accident which damaged his left hand, Bruce was a professional cellist, performing regularly in the Boston Symphony Orchestra and numerous chamber orchestras and chamber ensembles in Boston. He was a co-founder, cellist, and executive director of the Boston Chamber Music Society, and also served as the director of chamber music and orchestral activities at the New England Conservatory of Music. Cello, chamber music, teaching, mentorship, all these remain significant in his life to this day. Bruce's career has been marked by his commitment to place orchestral musicians at the heart of decision-making. He's a champion of performers and audiences alike, an innovative thinker with a collaborative style who has shaped a new model for our field and whose work has significance to all of you here today, our graduates, as you chart your own path in music. Throughout his work, he's broken down the barriers between management and musician, orchestra and concert goer, creating deep and lasting relationships between performers and their communities. He's certainly the type of enlightened executive and artistic partner I hope you find at your first position and throughout your entire career. We're honored he is with us today. Please welcome Bruce Coppock.
Thank you, President Carden, Provost Daly, ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Directors, distinguished members of the faculty, but most importantly, you guys, the members of the Colburn School's class of 2016. It's an honor to be here today to congratulate you on your accomplishments. It's no simple feat, and I'm sure that each of you appreciates that without the tremendous support of your families and the commitment and guidance of your teachers, you couldn't have found yourselves here today. Not just the faculty who taught you at Colburn, but all of those who, from the very beginning of your studies at age 4 or 5, invested in you and helped you find your way. Please never forget the debt of gratitude you have to all those people. Please never forget that without the superior early training you received, your teachers at Colburn wouldn't have had the opportunity to mold you into the burgeoning artists you are today. It's my fervent hope that you will forever thank the people behind the scenes who formed the extraordinary network of support that's gotten you here today. Let's remember the leadership of Richard Colburn in making the visionary gift to make this school possible, and the noble men and women of the school's board of directors and administration who've brought that vision to life in 10 short years. You are the beneficiaries of others' tremendous generosity and passion for giving young musicians the best possible training. Humility before the efforts of those who've helped you is a great place to start our conversation today. Of course, each of you deserves all kinds of praise and credit for having the gift, the grit, and the capacity for hard work that makes you the highly accomplished musicians you've become. You are among the elite few who had the wherewithal, the focus, and the determination to gain acceptance into Colburn and to make it through its rigorous curriculum. So while I hope you always show deep, ongoing humility before all those who supported you, you must always take enormous pride in having reached this moment of transition in your lives. Benjamin, your story of your vulnerability gives me great hope for the future of classical music. It's an inspiring story. And Jena, your generosity of spirit is equally deeply inspiring. It makes me feel as if I almost have nothing more to say to you today. It's been my great fortune to thrive in the classical music business for over 40 years. It's been a wonderful journey. But whether it feels like a wonderful journey or unending misery is a choice each of us has to make, daily, weekly, and yearly. I've had the pleasure and honor of playing with and working with musicians at every level in the classical music world. Musicians who struggle literally to put one note after the next. Musicians who live at the very highest levels of classical music at the international level, and every level in between. I've learned a lot from all those encounters, from terrible mistakes I've made, and from continually trying to improve. I'm grateful for the chance to share a bit of that with you today. I don't want to spend a lot of your time today talking about the world of orchestras, except to say how proud I am of the work we did at the Saint Paul Chamber Orchestra to create a far more egalitarian and musician-driven culture. In my work over the past 25 years leading two orchestras, the St. Louis Symphony and the Saint Paul Chamber Orchestra, as Sal said, the dominant theme of my work has been to empower musicians in the orchestra to take leadership roles, not just in orchestra politics or union negotiations, although that's very important, but in the artistic life of the orchestras, and even more importantly, in their own artistic well-being. My commitment to trying to make musicians' lives more vibrant got me in a lot of trouble over the years. But in St. Paul, after 15 years of struggle, difficult and pitched battles within the orchestra, I'm very proud to say that the artistic affairs of the SPCO are now completely in the hands of its musicians. First, we eliminated the position of music director, which made a lot of people very upset, especially conductors. Over time, the SPCO has become virtually conductorless, with conductors only involved for big projects like the St. Matthew Passion. Everything else is either led by SPCO musicians or by one of its 6 artistic partners, each of whom spends 3 or 4 weeks a year at the SPCO. Artistic partners are chosen for the distinctiveness and imagination of their own playing and their chemistry with the musicians of the SPCO. People like the Swedish clarinetist Martin Fröst, the German pianist Christian Zacharias, and the Moldovan phenomenon violinist Patricia Kopachinskaya, among others. With those people, concerts have become love fests for musicians and audiences alike. So the musicians more or less control everything from who becomes a member, the programming, the ratio of rehearsal time to number of concerts, who appears as a guest, and most importantly, the preparation and interpretation of the music. We could spend all day talking about the challenges of musician self-governance, but that's for another time. The culmination of this work to put musicians in charge of their own artistic affairs came concurrently with my retirement last December, when we formally transferred all of my artistic responsibilities and authorities out of the executive office and into a newly created position of artistic director, now held, and to be forever held, with the enthusiastic support of his colleagues, by Kyu Young Kim, the SPCO's principal second violinist. Why Kyu earned the support of his colleagues, the confidence of the board, and the confidence of the international and artistic business structure of the classical music world is what I want to talk to you about today. Of course, he plays extremely well and is a highly accomplished chamber musician, but that's not why he got the job. He got the job because of superior interpersonal skills, unending intellectual and musical curiosity, and above all, a ravenous interest in the wider world of music. And finally, his humility, his willingness to submit himself to a huge learning curve, working with me over the past 2.5 years, getting himself ready for the job. It was deeply impressive. Imagine a sitting member of a major American orchestra who is its artistic director. It's truly a new day. I started off with the story of Kyu because I want to talk to you very seriously about aspects of your upcoming careers that are crucially important and which I don't believe get the attention that they deserve. What I'm about to say may make you uncomfortable, but it's really, really important. I have to tell you that there's nearly zero correlation between how well you play, how much adulation you receive, and how you will feel about your place in the world. And there's nearly no correlation between how much money you earn, how famous you are, and how content you are. We're a culture teeming with supremely accomplished musicians. And yet so many of those same musicians, brilliant musicians, struggle mightily with the entirely human issues of self-respect, interpersonal relationships, generosity of spirit, and fundamental emotional health and happiness. Those are the qualities that got Q the position of artistic director at the SPCO. The truth is that playing extremely well is an absolute requirement, but on its own, it's an utterly insufficient set of skills to make a full career. There are two main aspects of this, one entirely personal and one completely interpersonal. Your own well-being during your careers in music will be far more determined by the healthiness of your relationship with music itself, your humility before the challenge of being a musician, than anything else. People with humility, unremitting intellectual and artistic curiosity, and thirst for knowledge, people who understand that there is far more to know than they themselves already know, those are the people who end up with satisfying careers and who have something meaningful to say to audiences. That's the self-care part. Then there's the interpersonal part, the diplomatic skills, the ability to celebrate and learn from others' successes, the leadership skills to turn your own ideas into reality that makes the difference between musicians who are in control of their destiny and those who simultaneously feel entitled and powerless to change their own circumstances. There are many things you won't have control over in the coming years and decades. Whether you win an audition across the street or a big competition across the pond, whether you play as well as the person next to you or become as famous as they do, whether someone runs a red light and smashes your hand, as happened to me 27 years ago, whether you're diagnosed with a life-threatening disease in middle age, and all kinds of other life-altering events. You can't control any of that, I'm sorry to say. But there's lots you can control. In fact, there's far more that you can control than the stuff you can't. That's where your work begins today, and it's the work you must do for the rest of your lives. It's about the choices you make and the attitude you bring to your lives as musicians and as people every day. You can control whether you remain curious about the world of music and musicians. You can control whether you're in love with music and love with the process of being a musician, or in love with the rather elusive idea of being famous. You can control whether you continue to grow as artists or whether you rest on your various laurels. You can control whether you wait for the world to come to you or whether you step out and embrace a world of possibilities. You can control how you deal with the inevitable upsets, and equally importantly, you can control how measured you are in understanding the temporal meaning of your many inevitable successes. You can control whether you understand that the work before you is to sculpt your own life in music. This reminds me of an old Chinese proverb that I've lived by and lived with for the last 40 years. The proverb goes, "A peasant must stand on a hillside for a long time with his mouth open before a roast duck flies in." In other words, it won't be served up to you on a platter. You'll need to go out and cook it. Many of us who've had the good fortune to be successful will volunteer that luck had a lot to do with it. But it's hard to know in life what constitutes luck. How was I to know that breaking my left hand in a car accident became a transformational moment in my life, opening up a world of possibilities in music, in my own personal development, and my professional career? Sure didn't feel like luck sitting in the emergency room with a scalpel-happy surgeon trying to operate on my hand. But when I found the right one, and he reconstructed my hand, he had a very interesting answer for my most obvious question, which was, will I ever be able to play the cello again? He answered it with a fundamental challenge about personal choices. He said, Bruce, I can't guarantee you'll ever be able to play the cello again, but I can absolutely guarantee that if you don't assiduously and faithfully do the physical therapy I'm about to prescribe, you definitely won't ever play the cello again. It's your choice. He proceeded to outline a regimen of alternating hours of exertion and soaking my hand, a 2-hour sequence repeated 6 times daily. Those 12 hours daily not only healed my hand, but taught me more about life, the value of grit, and the power of choices than anything I ever learned from formal training. When, after 4 months of the daily 12-hour ritual, I could finally touch my fingertips to my palm, it was as great a joy as you can imagine. How could I have known how lucky I was to be able to participate in such a completely transformational experience? We just never know. My little 12-hour daily routine provided ample time, believe me, for reflection about the cello, about music, about my career. What's really important, because the stakes felt very high. I had 2 very small children. It turned out that a broken hand opened up a world of possibility, a world of creativity, and the opportunity to function at a far higher level of accomplishment in the world of orchestra leadership than I ever had as a cellist, despite having maintained a perfectly decent career as a cellist in Boston for 20 years. So why am I boring you with this personal story? Well, it's because it's a lens on the critical importance of what attitude you choose to bring to the path ahead. You're entering the profession at a very interesting time. Whether you thrive will depend in large measure on a whole range of skills you probably weren't taught in the studio, in theory class, or in your chamber music coachings, nor should you have been. If you're lucky enough to win that job across the street, or you found a quartet, or you're chosen for a teaching position, or if you develop a portfolio career, the difference between whether you find yourself content, engaged, and musically alive at age 50, let alone 70, will have far more to do with your relationship to music itself and how you navigate the tricky waters of the intense personalities around you than it will depend on how you play. Your contentment will depend on your leadership skills, your idealism, how vigorously you tend to your own garden of love for music, and the self-care you show in maintaining your own artistic identity. Only you can create a firewall between cynicism and idealism. If you don't learn to protect your passion and your love for the journey of being a musician, the music world could swallow you up. Please, please don't let that happen. Over the years, I've worked on a little list of ideas to work by. Terribly simplistic, but the result of years of observation, terrible mistakes I've made, and the odd success. It keeps me headed in a positive direction. Here's my list, and I challenge you to develop one over your careers for yourselves. Love of music, no matter where and in what form you're engaged with it. Musical and intellectual curiosity. Being inspired by those who are better than you, and gracious to those less accomplished than you. Focus, grit, determination. Honesty, even in the face of discomfort. Seeing opportunity and possibility where obstacles appear. No cynicism, no self-promotion, and no self-pity. In a commencement address 10 years ago, Stephen Colbert said the most insightful thing. He said, cynicism, you think this is going to be funny, but it's actually quite serious. Cynicism masquerades as wisdom, but it's the farthest thing from it. Because cynics don't learn anything. Because cynicism is a self-imposed blindness, a rejection of the world. Because we are afraid it will hurt us or disappoint us. The great German poet Rainer Maria Rilke, in his Letters to a Young Poet, also provided profound advice, highly relevant to how you craft your futures. Rilke wrote, "Don't search for the answers, which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer." So celebrate your enormous good fortune to have had the opportunity to study in this wonderful cauldron of learning. Use your gift to be evangelists for this music we all believe in and love so passionately. Most of all, find a way to remember that your leading your lives making music is a privilege, not an entitlement, and be happy and grateful that doing it is something only you can work on. If you do the work, you'll have a lot more fun that way, I guarantee it. I wish you all the best, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Bruce, thank you so much for being here with those inspirational remarks, and we know that you're going to continue to be a force in our field, and your love of music is what comes through everything you've done in your career, and I know that'll continue to be your driving force. And so it's our great pleasure to present you with an award as our keynote speaker at the 2016 commencement. Thank you, Bruce Coppock.
I have the honor of presenting the Colburn Conservatory of Music graduating class of 2016. The students graduating today have successfully completed their various program requirements as established by the faculty, and in doing so have also contributed to the growth and life of the Colburn School. I will now call the students to the stage. Candidates for the Bachelor of Music are Annie Elizabeth Bender, Austin Nicholas Huntington, Benjamin Richmond Manis, Michael Dylan Marks, Eduardo Manuel Rios Silva, Stephanie Ann Tong. Jacob Benjamin Thonis. Candidates for the Master of Music are Rachel Alexandra Duffy. Sheila Guo. Jennifer Marie Lane. Daniel Joseph Lawler. Thomas Alexander Morrison. Signe Sommer. Jena Kate Wight. The candidate for the Master of Music in absentia is Rachel Osler. The candidate for the Performance Diploma is Blake Leslie Pouliot. Candidates for the Artist's Diploma are Yewan An. Anna Yurievna Kolotelina. The candidate for the Artist Diploma in Absentia is Benjamin Edward Bartelt. Candidates for the Professional Studies Certificate in Absentia are Maria Andonia Georgieva Andonova, and Hugo Renfret Paquet. Candidates for the Professional Studies Certificate, Da Kyung Kwok. Emily Martin Lair. Elizabeth Liu. Uzair Mahmoud Bailey. Kevin James Schlossman. Erwin Luka Saszek. I'd like to bring back to the lectern Alice Colon, a member of our Board of Directors who is officially representing the Board in the bestowing of degrees and diplomas today. I can think of few members of the Board who are more dedicated to this institution, an individual who brings to this institution a love and friendship to all here as a long-standing friend of the school and a dedicated concert goer, and who prides herself in a personal interest in the lives of all of the people here at the Colburn School. Please welcome me in joining and welcoming Alice to the lectern.
This is what you've been waiting for. By virtue of the power vested in me by the state of California and the Board of Directors of the Colburn School, and on recommendation of the faculty, I hereby confer upon the members of the class of 2016 the Bachelor of Music degree, the Master of Music degree, the Performance Diploma, the Artist Diploma, and the Professional Studies Certificate in Music Performances. Yes.
Will all the graduates please switch the tassels on their caps from right to left? Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Colburn Conservatory of Music class of 2016.